Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you weathered the storm well, and I hope you didn't get flooded because, as you know, we have a flooding in Flagler issue. Our guest tonight was supposed to be Andrew Werner, but he had some stuff come up and can't make it. So tonight, Candy and I are going to have the Empty Seat show where we just kind of talk about things that are going on. So don't go away. Come right back. And we're back. How are you doing tonight, Candy?
I'm doing fabuloso. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a shame that Andrew had some things come up today. Hopefully, we're going to be able to reschedule them for next week.
Yes.
And so that gives people a chance to send in more questions if they like.
Well, I kind of already have a lot of
Well,
questions
you had one or two questions
that I
there.
actually had wrote out that came off of the website and in private messages. And I was going to share them before we went on air so you would know what we were talking about. So if you would like to see those ahead of time, just let me know. We still want to have you on the show, but today we're going to fill the empty seat with some topics that are going around.
We'll discuss some other stuff.
Yep, we're going to discuss other stuff that we would just try to cram into the show. So we'll just talk about those things right now as we were chit-chatting before the show.
Yeah.
So
Now, I just have to say, please don't segue into anything about the lawsuit with the bond issue because I cannot speak about it right
we're
now.
not going to talk about the bond issue. The only thing I wanted to talk about regarding the bond issue was actually the attorney that you have working on that specific case.
Great guy.
Yeah, I really would like to meet with him and sit down with him just because the Flooded in Flagler group has become quite large. We still really haven't received any action from the city as far as helping us fix our yards or anything of that nature.
Well, let me ask you on that subject. I know they put together a committee to go over it, and I know that you've tried to make as many of the meetings as you can with them.
Right.
What's your feeling on the way that's been working out?
Actually, I've only got to go to one meeting, maybe two, because I didn't have them on one of the days I work. I've already got my schedule cut really short because I go to city council on Tuesdays and have other
Right.
things on Fridays. So I only have other days I can work, and I do two things at my work, so I can't really miss any more work. Oh my gosh. So I'm sorry. I just had a brain fart.
Oh, well, it happens. What I was asking, what you thought about that committee? Is it worth doing anything?
So they've moved the meeting to the meeting for yesterday got rescheduled because of the hurricane. So
Sure.
it is going to be next Thursday, this coming Thursday. So it will be rescheduled for then. So everybody that wanted to go to this Thursday should be going to that meeting just to kind of see how it goes. The thing I don't like about it is it's not recorded on YouTube. So other residents that maybe can't go can't see what's going on.
Really?
Like, an example is my neighbor down the street across down 4 just had to get, I think, 3 or 4 dump trucks of dirt delivered to his yard because the way they graded the homes next to him, his house sat in kind of like a ditch, Vinny. So he had to bring the yard up to the house and grade it towards the swale to the side, to the front, if that makes sense. He didn't know that the city was working on having a community dirt pile that people can go to and get dirt for free to help redo their yards, regrade their yards. But they have a form you have to sign.
Yeah, of course they do.
So the form you have to sign says that you will not grade your yard in such a way that your water runs off into the neighbor's yard.
You mean like the neighbor's yard running onto their yard, which is the reason why they have to regrade it?
Right. So that's what I was going to say. So all you're going to be doing is pushing the water back to where it should be. So if you sign that form and they want to come after you later or not ever help you because your yard floods because of the higher builds, you sign the form. Does that release you of all of those things? They want you to get a permit to regrade. There's just a lot of hoops you have to jump through on the form. So I think I'll pass, but that's just one of the things. There's not like really a form where all the information gets exchanged from the committee onto Facebook or
not.
social media. So people like Vinny would know that we had the dirt pile available. So I think I try to get as much information as I can so I can kind of try to pass it on. But as far as it getting passed on any other way, I don't see that happening. So that's going to probably be something I ask about on Thursday when I'm there.
Sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, bring up the thing about flooding I was referring to as an attorney. I've had a lot more people join the page. We just had a little community breakfast at Redneck Rick's this past Saturday, and new people, new faces were there. They seem to be interested in a class action lawsuit. And we all know that it falls on the city because the city is ultimately the one that gives the CO for people to occupy the property.
It's, you know, not to interrupt you, but it's awesome that your page is growing. It's sad that your page is growing.
I know, I hate it.
You know, it's so many people have the same issue, and the city's just deaf ears.
Right. And it's just, you can see it with your eyes. And it's something I never noticed before. And I've lived here for 10 years, okay? And I've been through all the streets. I just now know all the shortcuts to get from one side of town to the other to avoid all the traffic. It's taken a while, but I do. But you can see the houses. You can drive down the street and you can point to which ones are the new ones. And it isn't at all by the way they look. It's about how high they are.
Yeah.
And you can see the yards having a ripple between. That's supposed to keep the water in this yard so it doesn't go to that yard. And you can just see all the issues with all of those things when it would have just been more simple to build drainage between the two and roll with it. Like,
Well, I don't understand why this whole, it would be awesome to know who in the city allowed this to start happening,
I've
because
asked that
it
already.
wasn't, you know, they're not going to tell you, because
how many foils have I put in for that? I've put in several foils. I've still never got that answer. Who is the one person responsible?
Yeah.
Is that why Denise Bevins was fired?
No, according to Mayor Alphen, Denise Bevins was fired because she brought up the issue of the utility rate increase before the election.
That's correct. That's right.
He said that on that blogger's site.
I'm just trying to figure out who the person is who was the person that decided that that was going to be okay to build that way. Did they actually go and look at it?
Well, the only person that I can think of, and I have no idea if it's correct, but I think the buck would stop with whoever is the head of the building department, and that would be Jason DiLorenzo.
Yeah, I've heard that name many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting, get off subject a little bit. You know, you were saying that you've been here a number of years and you're still just now learning all the shortcuts and everything. Well, back in '84, there was a forest fire that came through Palm Coast. I've lived through 2 of those here.
Wow.
And the home that I was building with my dad, not for us, he was a home builder, I worked with him, was out in Pine Lakes, and all of a sudden a sheriff's car came by and said that the fire had breached Route 1, and we were on the corner of Whippoorwill and Whiteview.
I know right where that's at.
So the fire had breached Route 1, which isn't that far down the road on Whiteview, and that we needed to leave now. Now, my dad said we're too busy. So we didn't leave right then. And about, I don't know, couldn't have been 5 minutes later, all of a sudden the fire was going through the tops of the pine trees. And you could hear it like a freight train going straight over. So we jumped in the truck then.
Then you left, right?
But it was too late. And it was strange. The fire was blowing up through the ground in these little circles and going overhead. So we drove out into the middle of Pine Lakes golf course and watched the fire burn all around us. However, the few days later, when everything got taken care of and things were back under control, we had to go back and start building on that house. There was nothing there when we were just stringing out where the foundation was going to go. I got lost. All the landmarks were gone. I had to relearn the city all over again. And it took a long time to relearn the city. So I understand completely what you're saying. When it takes time, you know, to learn where we are in the city. And I don't think somebody that just comes in could speak about, you know, how to get around the city, because there's a couple of main roads, but as soon as you get off the main roads, you're lost, and it takes time to know
to figure
exactly
out which
where we
streets
are.
go through to the other main road
Right.
There are quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And they're actually through the pretty neighborhoods, some of them. I think most of them are actually. I think Palm Coast is pretty. I mean, most of the town's
Palm
pretty.
Coast is a beautiful city, and that's what we're just trying to keep it that way.
Yeah, we just want to keep it that way and keep everybody honest and above board. And, you know, I've been here 10 years, and I'll say this once and I'll say it again. I could be sitting in a room and be sitting next to name one of the bigwigs in town besides Michael Chimento, because I've sat behind him before at a city council meeting. I don't know any of those people. So when I get on here and talk, I'm just trying to talk about what I think is best for the city. I don't really care
Right.
if who they are, how many years they've been here. That stuff, that I don't have any connections to those people. That just really doesn't matter to me. I want to know their heart. I want to know where their money comes from, and I know what they're going to. I want to know what they're going to do with it. That's going to benefit me as a resident and as a citizen here, because I pay taxes for certain things, and I expect those certain things, and
Sure.
I shouldn't have to ask for those things.
No, you shouldn't have to. And,
We-
and when you do have legitimate complaints like the flooding issues, they should be listened to. So, we just had the hurricane go, well, it didn't really hit us, but we
Right.
had the hurricane come through on the West Coast, but we got a good amount of rain and wind over on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about anybody that had any major flooding
I
from
didn't
this
hear.
on our side?
I did not hear any other people on my page, or my friends or family, anybody here have any issues with water.
Right.
A few people had some tree issues, but as well as I do, the first
Yeah.
storm that comes through always snaps those
Always
weak ones
gets
off
the-
first. So,
yeah.
and then there was crews out, I noticed yesterday when I was driving around town, out cutting tree branches off of all of the power lines, like being proactive.
Proactive?
And then somebody was complaining on another page about, well, they cut it down. Why didn't they drag it away? And I said, do you realize you got free tree cutting? Can you not drag it to the curb for the trash guys to take it for you on
Yeah.
Tuesday or Thursday or whatever day they take it for you?
They're just trying to get things ready. I mean, if they didn't try to get it ready and one of those trees came down and hit a power line, then they'd be complaining that they
Because-
have no power. So you
exactly.
can't make everybody
This
happy
is
no
the
matter
first
what you
time
do.
I've seen those crews out before a storm. I'm sure they probably
Yeah.
have been out before. I just happened to see them this time, so it was nice
Right.
to see the proactivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
The proactivity. So the ballot is coming out for the national election. And this was just a question that I had asked you earlier. And I said, I think we should talk about it on the podcast, because the ballot that we're going to have in November is not only going to have all the local election people that are still running that we had before, but it's also going to have the bond issue. It's going to also have the national amendments on abortion and legalizing marijuana. And there also, for me, was some questions on there that I hadn't researched yet, and now it's the time. A lot of judges are on the ballot. Should we reelect so-and-so? Yes or no? Basically, that's all it asks you. It says district so-and-so, the judge. Should we reelect them? Yes or no? So we don't really know anything about judges here.
Yeah. And it's very difficult to find anything out about them. And they hide their information because they're judges and they don't want people to know where they live and stuff because
Right.
we have crazies.
Protected voters.
Right. But one of the ways to sort of backdoor figure out a little bit about them is you go and you look who initially appointed them. So, for instance, if you're a conservative Republican and you look and you see that DeSantis had appointed one, then you might be in favor of that person because you can assume that person's going to have the same conservative
Generally
Republican outlook that that DeSantis would have had. Or you can look, and if Charlie Crist has appointed him and you're a Democrat, then you would think that would be the ideology you would follow that would appoint that particular judge, so you'd vote for him. So a way to figure out for yourself who you would vote for is to look at the background of who initially appointed them.
I thot that was a good tip, because I never thought about doing it that
I,
way. So
I
we
think
gotta
that's
do
the
that.
only way really to figure it out.
Yeah, we got to do that. And we do have a lot of protected voters, I think, here
Yeah.
in Palm Coast too, because a lot of people are retired military, CIA, FBI, all the other three-letter.
Witness protection.
Yeah, and Palm Coast is widely known for being the largest city for relocating witnesses in the witness protection program. I always thought that was a myth about Palm Coast, but I've
No.
come to find out it's very, very true. So, yeah, if you have a neighbor that moves in and you don't see them that often and they seem to just have deliveries a lot but not come out, you're probably living next door to one of them. Just saying.
Well, you as a former law enforcement officer, you would know a little bit about that.
And that brings me to another thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. The fact that I used to do that, I do have that, still have that kind of mind. So there's certain things that I see that I would like to give tips to the community in. And I've been hearing has been a lot of short-term rentals that are being rented out, and they are bringing U-Haul trucks in. of people at night and using that house as a stash house. So they'll bring a group in, right? The group that's in there gets in the U-Haul and goes, and they're doing it at night. So if you're having a house that's having a U-Haul more than it should have been, somebody moving in, 3-4 days, you're seeing a U-Haul all the time, and they don't do lawn service, they don't do, you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's kind of odd. I would just try to keep my eye on that, because they are actually having a problem with human trafficking, and there's children involved. So we got, if you see something, like the sheriff says, say something. So that's something that I would like everybody to keep an eye out for in our community. We've been having a lot of meetings at my job, and a lot of things we have to watch about human trafficking. So I have a feeling that there's some going on in Florida that maybe normal people aren't aware of. So I think that's one of the tips that we got, was about the rentals and the U-Hauls and the people, a lot of people coming in and out basically at night. So just keep your eyes
keep an
peeled.
eye on
Usually
that,
if it looks weird to you, don't think that you're being a Karen. Just because you're concerned and you look around your neighborhood and think something doesn't feel right, you trust yourself. You're usually right,
Yeah, and if you call it in and nothing's happening, then nobody gets bothered.
Right.
If you call it in and something's happening, you might save somebody.
Right. And that's always the thing. Just be safe. Just be aware. Just be informed.
Yeah. What else
we
do we got
talked-
to talk about tonight? We're kind of at a loss because, our guest didn't show up. Or it's not that he didn't show up. He couldn't show up.
He couldn't show up. So I wanted to ask him this question, and I want to pose this question ending the podcast tonight, because I would like some of the people that have gotten elected already into office, and the people that are asking for our vote still yet in November, to answer this question by writing it as an answer or a comment on the podcast. We had a big issue. We lost a lot of money in infrastructure because of the way that it was sent up by the Southern Group to Tallahassee, as far as...
Explain the Southern Group.
Okay, so if you don't know, the city has a group called the Southern Group. They go and lobby for us up in Tallahassee based on things that our leadership tells them that we want or that we need here. And they get that in a form of a list.
Right.
So you would think that when the list was handed to them, that it would be in the form of priorities, one being the most important, we want this, and the bottom being, we would like this, but we'd rather have one or two first. We were told by our mayor and our city council that they decided the order in which those priorities were listed.
That we were told that the lobbyist group decided the priorities, not the city council.
Right. We were told that the lobbyist group decided what order our priorities were going to be put on when they took it up to Tallahassee to get us money.
And number one on the list was?
The Westward Expansion.
It's weird. $80 million.
$80 million. So when we say we lost $80 million, we really did lose it, because that money was supposed to come out of the DRI 14 years ago by Rainier, that owns that property. And that's why we're telling you they took that money from us, because if they would have already put that in like they were supposed to have, then that wouldn't even have been on the list, first of all. So maybe the infrastructure would have been number one.
Which should have
maybe
been.
a water plant, maybe number two. Common sense is no more common anymore. So I want to find out from everybody that's elected and everybody that might be elected, and that includes Mike Norris. Are you going to keep Southern Group as our lobbying firm for our city after they pulled that? Or would you like to keep them and have a hearing once we have our new council and mayor, and let them answer the question on who made those priorities in the specific order that they were in? Because I want that answer. Everybody in the city deserves an answer, and I want to know.
Yeah, because they took that $80 million, roughly $80 million, and they built, or they're going to build, the road, what's called the road to nowhere. It goes from Matanzas Boulevard across Route 1 going west, out and a bridge over the railroad tracks, loops down the backside of Route 1 down to Royal Palms, or comes back towards Royal Palms, goes back over the railroad tracks again, and then connects into Royal Palms.
It sure does.
And it's a road, a loop road, to help the developer develop out there.
Right.
They took out of that $80 million. They took 1 million and put it towards the expansion for our water treatment plant, which is going to take something between 35 and 50 million dollars to do it. So it was almost an insult to even put the $1 million
It
there.
really was. It
Yeah.
really was. I mean, we need the infrastructure beefed up, flowing correctly, stormwater, all that stuff. And they're starting to get all this, the stormwater department in order. They're adding more crews. They're adding a canal crew to do the dredging. They are working on that stuff. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah.
But the city needs to, we can do a moratorium on building, but what people don't realize is if the permit's already approved, which is all the things that we're seeing being done right now, those things are not going to stop. Those things
Yeah.
are going to continue because they've already been approved. You
Well,
can't stop those.
To be honest with you, you brought up the moratorium issue, and I don't believe in a moratorium. To me, a moratorium is a short-term answer, a knee-jerk response to a long-term problem, and it will end before the problem is resolved. What I think would be great to happen, and I had spoken about this when I was campaigning, was that we have, I'm going to call it a quota system. You have, you figure out, you have staff figure out, or you hire some outside consultant, which they love to do and spend gobs of money for information that they already have, and you figure out how many homes, how many permits can be done in a year and still maintain and move forward with infrastructure maintenance, repair, and expansion. And I don't know what that number would be, so I'm going to pull one out of the air, and let's say it's 10,000, 5,000, I don't know. Let's say it's 5,000. So we can allow 5,000 homes or combination of homes, apartments, condos, whatever, to be built and still be able to keep up with infrastructure. If you come in during that year and you're number 5,001, and I'm just pulling these numbers out of the air, but if you're number 5,001, we're not going to say you can't build, but you have to wait to the start of the next year to build. So that way, we're not putting all kinds of contractors and laborers and all these people out of work. We're just limiting the amount of construction that's going on so that we can keep up with it through
That would
it's
be like
managed construction, managed
smart
development.
building planner.
Yeah.
We would need a smart building planner because they would do all those things. And what I've always said is how many developments and how many things can they continue to build in one area of town? Like I live in the P section over by Royal Palms. Not only are they building Ponce Preserve 2 blocks on down to my, north side, around behind me, they're building the development over on Old Kings Road, the one that's on Old Kings and Town Center.
Right.
Okay, so that's 4 blocks the other direction for me, and then 3 houses down they're building a house, and then behind me 2 houses down they're building another house. So nobody's looking at the effects that it's having on the residents. They shouldn't be able to have that many projects going in that small of a square mileage area at the same time. That's just not smart growth. That's why people are upset, because there's too much in each area of town at
Right.
one time. Why don't they spread it out more and look into the smart growth side, like what you're saying? There's like, how many people can we meld into what we already have without it affect? It's like a rippling of waves.
Right.
It's like you want to settle the people into the city. You don't want to settle the people in like this, because we're not going to want to welcome any more people, because we feel like if they would stop coming, then maybe we would be more peaceful,
And
right?
we could catch up. We could get our roads
That's
fixed
what
and
we
all
feel
that.
like. That's how
Yeah.
they don't understand. That's how we feel. You hear it from people. I hear it from people. We just want them to take care of what we already have before they add anything else to it.
Right.
That's really not too much to ask, considering we pay 93% of the taxes here in town. All I'm saying.
Right.
So I would like to remind the people watching that have been running and are running to answer the question about the firm, the Southern Group, if you would keep them. And I would also like to ask you what you think about the city manager making more than Ron DeSantis makes. What do you think about that salary?
You know,
you
it was
know that?
it was
A
interesting
lot of people
today.
don't know that.
Yeah, no, a lot of people don't. Well,
They
they don't
really
know.
don't.
$190,000 a year is what our city manager makes.
And Ron DeSantis makes 160 something. He makes like a little bit less.
Right.
And he runs a whole entire
State versus a little city.
And a little city person makes more than somebody that runs a whole state. Now,
Right.
if you think about that for just a second, that is so out of skew.
Oh yeah.
And then they're advertising to fill the position, and the salary is even bigger.
Well,
It's
you know,
in the 200s.
on Free for All Friday today, the host of it, David Ayers, was saying that he thought 190,000 wasn't enough. That if we wanted a really high end city manager, we should go up to 250,000. And well, why don't we just go to 1 million? I mean, you know, we have 100,000 people,
Right.
100,000 people in Palm Coast, and we're spending 250. He wants to spend 250,000 on a city manager. I agree. We need a high quality city manager because we haven't had one in roughly 10
I was
years.
going to say, right after I got here, we had one for a little while, and then he left.
Yeah. Well, Landon was fired by city council because, well, I won't get into that. But anyway, you know, and we haven't had one since then. And we've had nice people, but we haven't had quality city manager people. And we need to get that. And I mean, if we have to spend a little more to get it, then they're going to have to find a way to justify their pay.
Right.
And they might have to cut some stuff out to make it happen.
They're going to have to figure out something because not only does the city manager make more than the governor, the city manager has 2 assistants that make pretty nice salaries. So
and that's such a joke.
they need to do something about that. And I want you guys to think about that. And I'd like an answer to that question because that's a question I wished I would have asked everybody when we had you in house, and I failed to do so. But I've delved into things a little bit more, so I have more questions. And something else I wanted to talk about was people being nice, people being stoic. I've heard everybody that's running against each other being described in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jeff was described as being the most knowledgeable, the most involved. He's been here for a long time, but he has a rather stoic. I guess they just mean he's not real animated. He's just real professional, and he's just real matter of fact.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can't vote for somebody because maybe somebody's fun to go hang out with on the boat or at the golf course, but maybe they're not so fun to hang out with because maybe, you know, they don't do this or they don't do
Right.
that. You got to look at the substance of the person here. During these elections, this is not about who you like, okay? This is about policies. This is about beliefs. This is about moving our city forward in a way that we all can agree on and all thrive under. And that is not what's been happening here.
No.
And
Well,
that's
and
why
this-
we're turning over everything the way we are. And that's what we expect from these people when they get elected. And they know that we're not going to let them slide.
Well, that's a new thing because they've been
They
sliding
have
for a
been
long
sliding.
time.
Nobody's been looking.
And the sad part about it all is that elections are emotional and not logical. And having run a couple times, and I can tell you, I come out with facts, I come out with information, and I get crucified for it because I didn't tell the right joke or whatever. This is about
It's serious
emotion,
stuff.
and it's stupid
Yeah.
because people don't understand. They vote for, well, this, you know, I actually had a comment once when I was running that I was wearing a nice sport jacket, but they didn't like the pants I had on. It's
Well,
it's-
you can't please everybody all
No,
the
you
time.
can't.
But it's just common sense here. You can't vote with your emotions because my wallet, when I open it up, it doesn't have any emotions. It's just either empty or it's full. And right now, it's a whole lot less full than it used to be.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
that is kind of hurting my emotions. It's kind of making me angry
yeah.
because I think that the last 3.5, 4 years, I've lost a lot of money. I've had to work a lot more. I have to
Yeah.
pay a lot more for stuff just like everybody else for groceries, gas, and all that stuff. So I am not voting with my emotions. I'm voting with my pocketbook and my checking account and my well-being
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah, logically.
And I'm voting for what's best for my city here in Palm Coast.
People don't understand. They think the presidential race is the most important, and it might be on a countrywide level, but, you know, President Trump doesn't set our property tax rate.
Right.
So it is the local issue that directly affects your wallet the hardest. People, I mean, we had
You have to get
30%.
involved.
30% came out and voted in the primary for our local.
That's kind of sad. It
it's
should be more
sad.
than half.
It's
More
sad.
it should be more over half of people. But,
Should
you know,
be, should be.
we'll work on that. That's why we're doing the show, because we can keep people
Yeah,
informed, let them know
education.
stuff's coming up, how to vote, not who to vote for, how to vote, what to look for, who to look for, like who's donating to these people. Do you believe in the people that are donating? Like that's
Right.
a PAC. That's a group of people that decide they're going to support a candidate, and they donate a large sum of money to them.
And they don't necessarily live here.
And they may not live here, so they don't have any hand, and they don't know what we're dealing with on a daily basis. So those are the things that you look at. Campaign donations, how long has somebody been here, who are they connected to, how are they voting in the past, things like that. Those are the things that you look at.
And how have they been involved in the community?
How are
and
they
all that.
involved? Yeah, what are
Right.
they literally doing? Somebody can sit up here and talk all day long, but unless they're out doing, unless you're running into them when you're going into places,
Mm-hmm.
those are the people that you want representing you because they're out representing you before they're even on the
Exactly.
dais. So just remember that when you vote. Somebody may not have the most eclectic personality or go and do all kinds of, golfing and table tennis or whatever, but they might be the best person for the job because they've been here the longest, they've been involved the longest, and they have what's best at heart.
Yeah.
So that's all we ever want to do here is just talk about the things that matter so we can bring more people to a better way of living here, by
Yeah.
the way we vote and the things that we do.
That's what we have to do. And that's what it's all about. That's what this show is about. Trying
Yep.
to get people to have information. And hopefully we can get
No empty seat next week.
no empty seat. That's right. No empty seat next week. Well, everybody, has been great to have you listening to the podcast this evening. And as you know, my co-host Candy and I try to come here every Friday and give you as much information and keep you involved as much as we can. So please keep sending us questions for different things you'd like to have us discuss or find information about. And I'm Alan Lowe. This is the I Told You Show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.